All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're at the midway point of the Eastern Tennis Conference, and we hope that you've been enjoying the session so far. Over the past few years, the USTA has put many resources into growing tennis in schools because it is not only a lifelong sport, but also it teaches great life skills. Today, we have a panel of experts who are all connected to schools in some way, and they will share the benefits of our program. So let's get started by introducing ourselves. I'm your moderator, Neil Thakur, and I'm the USTA Eastern representative for the Long Island and Metro regions. I'm joined by my colleague, Natalie Dagnall, who represents the New Jersey and Southern regions. We have 5 panelists with us today. Our first panelist is Lynn Hallwell, who is a PE teacher in the Hannibal Central School District in upstate New York. That was actually her video that you just saw earlier. Then we have Kerri Jannotte-Hinkley, who is a teacher and tennis coach at the Roslyn School District on Long Island. Next is Shelly Connors, the president-elect of the New York State Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. That's a mouthful. And then we have Jason Watts, who is a USTA Eastern school clinician and a school partner on Long Island. Last but not least, we have Dominic Montes, who is also a USTA Eastern school clinician and school partner in the Albany, New York area. So each of them will tell you a little bit about themselves. Let's start with Lynn, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you do in the school district and in PE.
Thanks, Neil. Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn Hallwell, as Neil said, and I currently teach K4 Phys Ed in Hannibal, New York. And that was a video that we produced in 2018 when we received the Next Generation grant. And my background in tennis, I played all 4 years of collegiate tennis, and I coached a boys team and was a sectional chairperson, and I coached the Empire State Games girls here in New York for a while. So I do have a tennis background. But when we got that equipment, the Next Generation, it was just like a boost. I teach at a really rural, kind of poor district. So to receive that grant that year with all the lessons and the equipment was just like magical. And we use it a lot. And currently I'm teaching K3 live in person every day. We do get kicked to remote at times. And then I also teach 7th grade, which is just all remote. But I guess I don't want to talk too long, Neil. That's my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie Gennadyhinckley. My first day job is I'm a special education teacher in Roslyn. My other slightly busier job is that I'm the boys varsity tennis coach and the girls JV tennis coach at Roslyn High School. I came up playing tennis through the NYJTL at the National Tennis Center location in Queens. And I played my high school tennis at St. Francis Prep. I enjoyed every minute of it. I currently work with my community playing tennis by using the NetGen equipment with weekend clinics for anyone who shows up. We provide free tennis lessons. My tennis players serve as the coaches. So I've trained them in how to use the equipment and in the curriculum, and then they use their information and their knowledge and their skill set to help anyone age 2 and up. And then in addition to that, we also go to a homework club after school and we give indoor lessons, again, using the NetGen equipment. And, you know, it's students that are doing their homework and waiting for parents to pick them up, but it gives them an hour and a half of something else to do. And, you know, sometimes we get the added bonus of having one of the students first play tennis there, and then they show up at my tryouts 7 years later. So that's always exciting to see. The equipment is amazing. The curriculum is very easy to use, even if you don't have a tennis background, but I highly suggest everyone take advantage of the offerings that NetGen and the USTA have for you.
Thank you. Shelly?
Hello, my name is Shelly Connors. I'm actually filling in for Colleen Corsi, who is our executive director of New York State AHPERD. We are a not-for-profit organization that supplies professional development for teachers, educators, recreation majors, things like that. We service all of New York State. We currently have about 3,000 members, and of course the light goes off. I'm at school on a timer system. We have USTA comes in quite often. Joe Steger is a huge part of helping us out with getting into our state conferences and doing things for our zones. As for me, I am a physical education teacher at the junior high school. I've coached women's tennis for 24 years, men's tennis for 5, and we do a summer camp, and we also use the Net Generation program and have had a great experience with it. And I can't say enough about USTA helping us out in really promoting tennis within our community and within the schools and organizations.
Thank you. It seems like every webinar we have, Joe's name comes up. So
Yes.
All right, Jason.
My name is Jason Wass. I am currently the camp director for Lou High summer programs in Brookville, New York. For the past 2 decades or plus, I've been with Sport Time Clubs and John McEnroe Tennis Academy. Really worked over the last decade or so a lot in the schools. I really believe that, you know, working with the USTA and the schools programs is a win-win for both, you know, the school side of things as well as commercial clubs, which I know sometimes, you know, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. We've been able to, I remember, you know, way back when, you know, we used to go in and into schools, and it was kind of a, you know, a presentation, and it was a little bit slow. And now with all the equipment that we get and the way that we've been able to work out through the Net Generation program, how to actually train the kids. You know, we have kids that the phys ed teachers are always amazed at how quickly we get the kids, even younger kids, playing right away and actually rallying and playing games and learning the sport. So that's you know, that's something that I know I've spent a lot of time with. We really kicked off a couple years ago working with Neil. We were able to get into, before COVID in 2018, 2019, we were in over 30 different schools where we would go in and introduce, you know, into the phys ed programs directly and introduce tennis in their gym classes, show it to them, and then leave them with the equipment in our partnership with USTA. And that worked out really well. And you know, I think Lynn and Carrie said it, you know, and then eventually they might start playing tennis, which is the end goal for everybody.
And last but not least, we have Domingo.
Thank you, Neil. Hello, everybody. My name is Domingo Montes. I am the program director at 15 Love in Albany, New York. Within what I do, I go to a number of schools, over 20 to 25 per school year. And I go and I basically do tennis with them during the gym day for an entire week at a time, showing the PE teachers how to bring this great sport into their curriculum. Using all of the tools that the USTA has made available to them, from the Net Generation app to the equipment, to the materials that they have available to them. Although with the 15 Love program, we do focus on the inner city. With our partnership with the USTA, we have been able to expand in the past for some period of times, and lending our expertise over to the suburban areas within the capital region. And I believe that, as Jason said earlier, that it's a win-win situation for everybody, from the schools to the clubs to the community parks, to be honest, and especially obviously to the youth.
And everybody, a shout out to Domingo, because he's getting an award on Friday. I'm not going to tell you what it is because we'd like you all to tune in. But if you want to see that live, come on Friday, 6:15, watch and see what he gets.
That's right. Congratulations, Domingo. So anyway, let's start off with our, we actually have a very nice question from our audience members, which is, how have you been handling PE during these COVID times? So maybe we'll start with our teachers. Carrie or Lynn, do you want to kick it off?
I'll hop in. So as not a physical education teacher, I can tell you that we have made some really nice efforts and made some strides with making connections through the computer with students. So what I did with my tennis team was we created an organization called Bulldog Buddies. My mascot for the high school is the Roslyn Bulldogs. So what we did was we matched up the students that would be coming to our clinics with the high school students that would be teaching the clinics, and we paired them up. And so really what it turned into was the ability for the older students to feel needed, the younger students to still have a connection. It turned into tennis lessons in the driveway. It turned into homework help. It turned into watching Disney movies together. It turned into a wide variety of things. But when the weather was nice, those kids made connections and met each other on local courts and had little mini sessions together. And when the weather's not so nice or the numbers are high, they still keep their connections. And all of the connections have held since we've gone home last March. So I'm really, really proud of the high school kids who have kept up that commitment, and also the parents on the other end who have really sat through hours and hours of online tennis video lessons. We've used a lot of the NetGen videos from Leah. So that's been really, really helpful. So that's how someone in my position, because I'm not in a PE classroom, is helping to keep the younger kids in the community still connected to tennis.
Right, that's great. And Lynn, what about yourself?
My school currently is a K-3 school that's live all the time. And that being said, we were 3 weeks and then we got kicked to remote. 2 weeks, we go back for a week, we go to remote. Half of our students are there live every day, and the other half are in the district made a decision for specials. I'm a Google Classroom. So I've not picked up the tennis rackets yet. I will be. We have done other equipment, and our restriction is, they can't share anything. But once someone uses something, we put it to the side, and in the evening it gets sprayed down. So to give a kid the racket and the ball will totally be usable. Like I just did a noodle and a bucket and ball. So the racket and ball, I'm excited when we get to that. And the other resources from that generation, I've been really easy able to put in my Google Rooms. I usually give the kids a lot of choices, and I've heard great things back from the students. And my tennis at the elementary school, I tend to recircle a lot. Like I may do a 2 or 3 lesson, and then in 8 or 9 weeks, I'll do it again. And then again, it's grabbing, and everyone has. So it's really a blessing to have the equipment. And our district put blue X's on the floor 12 feet away, which is a restriction. They're supposed to be on these blue X's. And it sounds a little hokey, but they do really pretty well. The balls may get a little out, and but I'm like, the way I present it is like, yeah, Wegmans, sometimes people get a little close to me too. But I'm excited and it's been working well.
Neil, we kind of have a cool story here. I'm now working with a middle school and high school. It's a private school. And I noticed, during the warm weather, they were able to go outside. They were able to, kind of run around. When they started coming inside, I reached out to you, Neil, you remember, and yeah. We ended up, it took about a week and a half from the time they filled, I even approached them till they ended up getting delivery of their equipment. So we were able to get a middle school pack and a high school pack here at Lehigh. And I'm really excited to tell you, I just met with them this morning to go over a schedule for next week so that we can bring it into the gym here. Obviously, tennis lends itself very well to social distancing. Tennis has been basically approved fully outdoors since April and fully indoors since June. So there's a lot of there's a lot of science behind, hey, this is one of those things that you can do during these times. Also, and I know Kerri and Lynn mentioned it, the the Net Generation app has a lot of virtual things that you can do at home. I know during the beginning in March and April and May, I have a ton of videos that we did with my son, who's 5 years old. And, we were playing in the backyard, playing in the driveway, playing off the wall. And it's all different things, skills that they can do. So to me, this is really the perfect answer for the tough times that we're going through right now. And hopefully when it gets warmer, we'll be able to, open it up even more. But tennis has a great opportunity right now to capitalize on being a great social distance sport.
Yeah, before Domingo and Shelly chime in, Jason, this is going to come in useful later. What comes in your kit that you get from the USTA?
Is this a test, Neil? What are you doing to me?
Well, this will make sense later on.
We got, so, you know exactly what it is, but the things that I use the most, there's 30 rackets, which is a lot. Number one, if anybody hasn't seen the bag, you can fit at least 2 bodies in there. Okay, it's great. So it's really good. So it's really big. You can fit all your equipment. I've been able to get the rackets and even add a net or 2 in there from, that I had on my own. So you get some tennis balls, you get some sidewalk chalk.
What type of balls do you get?
We got the foam balls, we got the felt balls. It depends on the package that you're doing. I really didn't expect to be quizzed today, Neil. I'm sorry. I was ready to.
Under 10.
I was there with you. So it was. I think I'm doing all right though. So
well.
and then you have the you have the guidebooks in there as well that have come. So, there's a lot of equipment. I mean, that's the easiest sell you'll ever have to do in your entire life, is explaining that, hey, the USTA is going to provide you with a whole bunch of free equipment and all you have to do is fill out this form. So it really is an unbelievable deal. I know the phys ed teachers here were like, really? What? Like, what's the catch? And
Right.
when I brought them all their equipment, they were super excited. And as many of you know, phys ed teachers, contrary to popular belief, do not get a huge budget every year. So, they were excited to get that equipment and not have to pay for it. So thank you,
Yeah.
USTA.
No, my question is going to make a lot of sense at the end of this session. So sorry, go ahead, Domingo or Shelly, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just before they do, I just got a question on a text here, which Domingo and Kerri can answer, saying, what about those PE teachers who then they've got the equipment, but they're really nervous about being able to teach? So maybe one of you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. When it comes to PE teachers being nervous to teach a new curriculum, that's completely normal. First of all, I would say that the number one thing that they're gonna want to do at that point is contact the USTA, obviously, or even better yet, if they have a school partner already in place, whether it be a Parks and Rec department or an NJTL or a local club, to contact them to see what can be done here in Albany, because I'm here. Most of all the gym teachers here know me already, so they all know that they can just call me on my cell phone without a problem, and I'll be more than happy to help them go through that. But as Jason said, the app gives them so much information and so many cool things. And the best thing about it is that just about everything on there is now on video. So all they have to do is load up a lesson plan and watch the videos.
And if you can throw a ball, you can teach a tennis lesson to a 4-year-old. I've never heard, and I'm in Roslyn, but I've never heard a 6-year-old kind of look at any of my beginner players who are coaching them and say, that's not how my private coach does it. These are beginners. As long as you're having fun, they will stick with it. So if you are enjoying yourself and you make it fun and exciting, this is not about tournaments at age 5. This is about getting more kids active, more kids playing a safe sport that can be played in socially distant situations. And it really is, as Jason said, a really big opportunity to grow our sport. It's all about growing our sport. And I think that the more kids you get on the court, the more possibility you have that they're still playing tennis when they're 75 and 80 years old, like my father is. So, and he's why I started playing. So, the NYJTL made it fun and added in the tournament aspect when it was appropriate. and never made anybody feel less than if they didn't want to play tournaments. And so it's just about having a good time and learning something new. So if you're nervous, don't be, call us. We'll hook you up.
Right. Shelly, do you?
I'm just going to reiterate kind of what Domingo said. Get a hold of USTA. They've come in twice for us to do sessions with our phys ed teachers. They'll give, the curriculum is all written out for you. They've got videos everywhere. Thank you for the Net Generation videos, because I shared those with my kids in the springtime last year when we were fully remote. And it wasn't just good for tennis players, it was great for athletes because they had footwork skills, they had a bunch of different drills. So even my soccer kids were saying it was great and they were doing a lot of stuff. And all they needed was sidewalk chalk to write down, you know, make a ladder. They don't need a ladder. And the curriculum is pretty straightforward. And then to go with what Carrie Ann was saying, we started a summer camp almost 20 years ago. And we had maybe 15 kids come and do our summer camp, and we were just having a good time and we loved it. And we have over 100 kids coming to our summer camp now. I wish it was for the tennis. It's more for the social and the fun, and they're having such a good time. And then some of those kids go and play another sport, which is great. But then I hear back from them in college and they're like, oh, they had intramurals and I went and played tennis because I played at summer camp. Oh, they were a soccer player or a cross country player, but now they're able to go play another sport with their friends, even though I may have lost them to a different sport, but still, at least they're playing and it'll take them through their lifespan.
Right.
And I'll add on, Neil, that when Joe Steger, when he comes to my school, a couple times he's come, I tell the kids, this is my coach, this is my teacher. And they love that. They relate to that. I go, no one knows everything about everything and anything. So I'm like, Joe's my teacher. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And so that's how it's just nice. The resources are there.
Yeah, and I think from my experience, I know Domingo does this and Jason has done this, that beyond the, you know, we do offer training for the PE teachers, but sometimes they, you know, if they haven't played tennis, they do find it a little bit daunting. But I know both of you spend at least a week in each school holding their hand, getting them started. So, you know, all that is available. All those resources are available. So you shouldn't feel scared of bringing in tennis at all. Natalie, do you have the next question for the panel?
Yes, so people have been wondering, like, how do I get commitment from my school? If I'm really keen to bring in a program, how do I get it started? Like, what do I do?
Be persistent. You know, I think if you can find a provider, you know, partner up with, you know, with somebody local, obviously your TSR, you know, like someone like Neil, someone like Natalie, Joe, whoever's in your neighborhood. If there is a way to get into the school, I've probably gotten in that way. So sometimes it happens through a phys ed teacher. Other times it happens through a principal. Other times it happens through an athletic director. Other times it happens through a school board member or a PTA parent. So it's not, there's no one path into working in with schools. And I had one story once where I was in a school and somebody was playing tennis at my facility, doing their lesson, playing their doubles league, whatever it was, and they walked out and they basically tracked me down and they were like, Jason, why aren't you coming to our school? And I said, what do you mean? I asked to, and they didn't say anything. And within 5 minutes, that mom had gotten me a sit down with the principal. And basically I drove up the block to it was one of the closest schools to us, and they had, you know, the district kept saying no. The principal was like, no, this is absolutely going to happen. So it's one of those things that there's no one way of doing it, but I can assure you there is a way to do it. So you got to be persistent. You got to find the way in. It might be a parent. It might be a teacher. In some cases, it's not the phys ed teacher. It's, you know, a teacher that plays tennis. And, you know, you just mention it to them and they say, all right, I'm going to bring it to my principal. I'm going to bring it to, you know, the school board, whoever it is, because every single district operates differently. Right. And, you know, obviously, if you have somebody on this panel that's in your area, I would start there and try to help. You know, Neil has gone in directly to, you know, the administration for us and then called me up and brought me in. And then other times I'll go in and I'll call Neil to come in and help you know, with his end of it. So it's really, these are partnerships in every direction. And that's really what I like about it is, you know, they're all little islands, and you have to try to figure out a way to bridge every island together and create a bridge between all of them.
Anybody else want to add? Yes, Kerri?
So Domingo and I have a connection that I didn't even know until he started speaking, but I taught for 9 years in Lansingburg. And so being in the Troy area, there's very little tennis being played. I had grown up in Queens, been playing tennis my whole life. So when I got there as a teacher, I thought, well, I'll apply to be the tennis coach. That obviously didn't happen. So in my head, I thought if I can teach to first and second graders, then maybe by the time they're in high school, I'll have enough children who have been playing tennis long enough that I'll be able to have a team. I didn't have NetGen, I didn't have the equipment, but you know, you kind of root around long enough and you know where you can go, you know, to get some beg borrowed anyway, and you get some equipment and you show up, and as long as there's a parking lot, you know, and you can line out a court, you can really play tennis anywhere. So that's what we did there. It didn't wind up ending up with a high school team, but we did have about 20 to 35 kids that came out consistently to learn tennis. And really, I went straight to the AD, and that's how, you know, as a teacher in that district, how I did it. But I'm still fussing with my AD to get Neil, who's offered so generously multiple times. So be tenacious, be creative, and you know, use the parents. The parents are a really helpful resource in this area. When they find out that there's free equipment and free tennis and the possibility of going to the Open, which is a whole other conversation, that really gets you some clout in the neighborhood, and it will really get people talking about it, and that's really what you want. So, you know, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 are better than 2, and so on and so forth.
Shelly, you wanted to add, I saw, yeah? And then Domingo.
Yep.
I was just going to say, I'm going off what Kerri Ann was saying. I'm the tennis coach, so it was really hard for me to get the elementary teachers to do it. But as soon as you say free equipment, they're in. Okay, because we're a Title I school, we don't have a lot of money. So it's free equipment, it's a lifetime sport. USTA, I have coached a lot of sports, and USTA is the best about getting information out there, getting you equipment, being helpful. I mean, nothing compares. I've coached lacrosse, I've coached soccer, I've coached basketball. Nothing compares to this organization with having somebody who will support you and help you with what you need to do. They will get you through. I can't say that enough.
And follow up.
Yes. Yep.
One thing I wanted to say too is to also make sure you research multiple opportunities, which is something that a lot of the panelists have said already, such as health fair days, you know, back to school days, things of that nature, because you know, about 3 or 4 schools that I work with, I was not able to get in through my normal means, the PE teacher and that sort of deal. But I was able to get in because the nurse happened to have come to our summer program at a school, and she was in charge of the health fair day that year, and she invited us in to do tennis with 2 of the grades. Next thing I know, I've been at that school for about 6-7 years in a row now, up onto the pandemic, obviously. So I'm gonna say to definitely make sure you look at other opportunities out there other than just the typical ones.
Now, if for the providers out there who want to connect with schools and also offer after-school programming to develop some of these kids who are interested in tennis, what would you suggest to them? How to go about?
One of the things that I would suggest is to make sure you talk to your TSR regarding tennis clubs. We've started a couple of tennis clubs in our after school sites. You do have to have somebody within the school district, at least locally, in order to do that, because a teacher has to be involved in that. But for the most part, they love it because, you know, you show up, you do a lot of the stuff, and the kids are gaining a lot of advantages from it. Definitely make sure the tennis coach for that school district is on board with you as well. I have yet to hear one tennis coach be against what we're trying to do, because it only gives them more players within their pool for the future.
Right, right.
So someone was
Okay.
asking there about, off Kerri Ann's question, like what age group should you really be targeting? Are we talking elementary
Birth.
schools here or middle schools? Want to talk a bit more
Birth.
about that?
Anything after they are out of the womb. I mean,
Earlier better. Yeah.
I will tell you that when we have our weekend clinics, and we'll get anywhere from 60 to 90 elementary school students to show up. So I have them pre-register so that I know how many high school staff I need. So that's helpful. Sometimes it goes very awry in the best way possible, and I have way too many kids. So we'll try to stagger it and group it by age, but we have plenty of younger siblings that will come and be sitting on a bench with the mom or the dad watching, and we don't let them sit for very long. So the racket might be a little large, but we always bring balloons. We always have a big stash of the foam, and you can just work on skills with them. So we've had, younger siblings as young as 2.5. And by the end of the lesson, as long as they're okay, and sometimes the parents are on the court with them, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned, and the younger the better, because if they can swat at a balloon, then that's a tennis player that's waiting to happen. So I'm a big proponent of starting them as young as possible. And like I said earlier, as long as you make it fun, they'll stay with it.
I see you nodding away. Do you want to add to that?
Is that me? Oh, so when they're 3, 4, 5, even 6 years old, if you can involve the parents, you're actually teaching the parents how to play with their child, and then they go home and they can play in the backyard. They can play on the driveway. One of the biggest things, and I've seen this in multiple sports, coaching my own son, a lot of parents are nervous because they don't know a sport, right? And so they won't teach them anything because they don't want to teach them the wrong thing. The curriculum here is so easy to follow, and it's so good for their athleticism, as Shelly was saying. This is about developing little athletes at younger ages, so making it fun and getting kids. Like, I'm a big fan of family play. So if you're doing younger age groups, then I would say incorporate the parents. You have extra pair of hands, to kind of, and it allows you as the coach to walk around and not have to, always be worried about the organization part of it, because you've given a partner to every single child. But, just to expand on the original question, a lot of people would say going into a school, you don't have to do the kindergartners. They don't usually. And then all of a sudden we'll do a whole curriculum just for the kindergartners and get them excited about it. And the, teachers will be like, wow, I can't believe they listened. They did all this. And we're doing partner activities with kindergarten age, right? So it all depends on the group that you're talking about, and, a lot of things, and who's the provider. But it's really like Kerri Ann and Domingo said, I mean, it's really any age where they're kind of walking, ready to run around and learn athletic skill development.
But I also wanted to add, we were able over the summer to offer, and this I did not foresee happening, but we were able to run lessons on 2 courts, and we basically had a parent court and a child court. So the parents came together. It felt very equal, because the parent was getting a lesson 3 courts down from their own child, who was getting a lesson from a high school student. And so they all went home with something new to talk about. You could do a drill, you could combine both of the courts for the last 10 minutes of the session, and everybody could kind of show off. But it also gave the child the opportunity to succeed without mom or dad watching every move. And it also gave the parent 50 minutes of just something that they might have been wanting to try for a really long time, but didn't have the childcare or the time, or they just didn't think about it. And so it turned into adult lessons as well, which my district offers as part of continuing education, but it was a completely different group. And so that worked out really nicely too. So that's another option. If you have something, later after school that's not during tennis season when the teams are using the courts, you can run something on court 1 and something on court 5 or 6. and never the twain shall meet until you want them to.
Okay, I just looked at myself. It looks like I'm in the dark there. Anyway, one question I had for all of you: how did you guys get connected with the USTA school program? Did the USTA find you, or did you find the USTA? How did that happen? Each of you can tell us your story about that.
To be
I'll go
honest,
first.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go
I
ahead,
was just
Shelly.
I'll go first just because it's a little bit different. I'm going to go on the New York State AHPERD side of this. And the fact that they are at the conference every year, they do a great job with presentations. They get you in contact with our people who are in the area, which is mostly Joe, who's very, very good about getting a hold of people and helping people out. And so there is a great opportunity if you are a phys ed teacher, work in the college at New York State AHPERD, to have that opportunity to see New York State, to see USTA, Net Generation, and all that stuff, and how to get tennis in your schools.
That's great.
And what I was going to say was, being that the 15 Love program is part of the NYJTL network, we were already connected. So it just made perfect sense for us to collaborate and see what we could do with the school districts. And from there, you know, now I'm a clinician. So everything just kept building year after year.
Right, and Domingo, you and Neil have both been at that program as well, so you'll see that the whole team, the USTA team, are there for you. If you're interested in getting the support, we'll back you and support you.
For mine, it was just like Shelly said, I was involved in tennis, but it was through the New York State conference that I ran into, I believe, Joe, and I write a lot of grants, and when they told me about that, I was like, I got to do this. And I say for the equipment, not only the equipment is the bomb, but whoever designed it was a phys ed teacher's dream, because it's rollable wheels where you can roll it out to a parking lot. I can roll it anywhere, and it's quite like that. It was so well done, so well thought of. The bag,
and you can put a body in it, right? Remember?
Yeah.
At least two.
At least two.
Probably two.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
So for me, I went around the corner to my local club when I moved to my new neighborhood for a lesson, and I wound up talking to the director, and I left with two really nice things. One was a part-time job teaching in their evening youth program, and the other was Neil's phone number. And so I contacted Neil, and then wound up very quickly and very happily volunteering with Net Generation and getting involved in the on-court demo, and spent every glorious day of the 2019 Open with just the greatest group of volunteers, and had the best time. And I highly suggest that anyone who has the time and the inclination to get involved with USTA in whatever way that you can.
That's great.
We've had another question coming off in terms of numbers. So a few of you've mentioned how many people come out. How do you manage this right now with COVID? You know, this is fantastic, but what can we do, especially when we move outdoors, to just make sure that we stay safe? Because we've been talking about being a socially distant, safe sport.
You have to be creative. I'll jump in and anybody can kind of follow suit, but you know, you have to be creative either way. I know before COVID, you know, we would walk into an elementary school gym and someone would be like, well, I have a class of 24. How are you gonna, you know, make this work? And you'd be surprised at, you know, how you can kind of have kids playing a game and keep the ball under control. You know, I've walked into middle schools where they have 3 classes going at once, and we had 75 kids at one time in a larger space. Obviously now, you know, the youth sports and regulations are what they are, and it might be masks, it might be social distancing, et cetera. But you know, keep in mind, at a regular tennis court, if you just go to that, I mean, you probably have about 6,600 or more square footage, you know, to use. So you know, if you can use that creatively, you can get, you know, large numbers, you know, done. But to Carrie Ann's point before, you can set up a court almost anywhere. So if you're sitting there and you have, you know, a parking lot, you could take some spaces out of the parking lot. You can, you know, if you're working out of a gym, you know, you can do rotations. There's a lot of different ways to balance those numbers. And, you know, that's always the one thing that I think phys ed teachers have a huge advantage over tennis coaches when it comes to this. Phys ed educators know a lot more about organizing numbers than tennis coaches. Sometimes tennis coaches don't know what to do if there's more than 4 people on a court. Yep. And you know, and that's tough because that's what they're used to. But in this case, you're designing the games and the play in such a way where you're using much less space and still getting a lot out of it. And that, you know, when I go back to like a clinician's training and I'm trying to teach the teachers, they're always amazed at, you know, this little court and this, you know, modified equipment, and yet they're sweating their butts off within the first 10 minutes that we have them playing, because there's a lot of ways to keep everybody moving, keep everybody active, keep everybody engaged. So, you know, this is a really tough time, but it is possible, and just use your space wisely.
It's funny that Jason says that, because while I completely agree with what he said and what I said earlier, I have played tennis in a gym. I have played tennis in a parking lot. I have played tennis on the sidewalk. I mean, when you grow up in Queens, sometimes there's limited space. So you learn to get very friendly with the wall behind your house. You learn to get very friendly with the, you know, aiming at the quarter on the sidewalk. So that's hand-eye coordination. I mean, you can do a ton of things with, you know, a little locator kind of plastic spot and make a game out of it. Running bases kept us busy for hours, and there were 25 to 30 kids on the block. So you can really do a lot of things. On the flip of that, I had the very, 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 very lucky pleasure to wind up at the national campus in Lake Nona. And when I walked in and I saw the permanent junior tennis courts, I almost burst into tears, because when I found out that when there's not a program going on, that they're free to the public, it made such sense, because you can bring your kids. They have a miniature court set up for them permanently all the time. There's no nets to move. But again, even when you don't have that, you can do a lot with a little. You can, again, you can swat a balloon back and forth across a fence. If that's all you have, you can set up tape in your living room between 2 chairs, and you can do hand-eye coordination games with a balloon. You can really get really creative. Look at the videos. Jason's 100% right. If a tennis coach has 6 courts and more than 4 people per court, they have a meltdown. And you really have to look at it more as an opportunity than you know, a blockage. You have to learn and say, what game can I play with 4 to 10 kids on a court, because I've got that many kids showing up for a clinic and I refuse to send them home. You can't really be sure of how many students will show up for the clinics, even though it's a pre-registration situation. So just get really creative and just make it fun. When
that video that you saw I did in 218, I've been doing like COVID phys ed videos. When I get to my tennis unit, I'll probably make one. I'll share it with you all.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I think, Shelly, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, just make sure you know what the rules are too, because as Lynn was saying, our phys ed rules are very different from organization rules. And so what we have to abide by as phys ed teachers are different than clubs and what they can do, or club team sports and what they can do. And so in each school district might be a little different. So like for me, we weren't able to use equipment at all in the summertime on school grounds. So we got kind of shut down because we couldn't use equipment on the school grounds. So every school is a little different. So you just want to make sure you know what your rules are in your area. They are getting more lenient, which is good, but just make sure you know what the rules are for each places.
I think Jocelyn, I saw your hand go up, but if anybody has a question, please add it to the chat. We're going to be winding down soon, and we have actually a little trivia contest sponsored by Shelly and AHPERD. So we're going to get to that in a few minutes, but if anybody has any other questions for our panel, please feel free to put them in the chat.
There's a comment here rather than a question that you guys could perhaps lead off to. Somebody saying that they've been really finding that at schools people are interested because it's socially distanced. How do you, basically, the question to you I would say is, how do you explain that tennis is a good social distance sport to the schools to persuade them to maybe take this on versus other sports?
To be honest, just talking to them about the size of the tennis court compared to like the other athletic courts is one thing. Also getting them to understand that that on a tennis court, when you actually are playing, there's 4 kids per court, so it's gonna take the kids who want to go out and do it on their own. They're gonna still be socially distancing. It's not like when a kid plays basketball and when they go out to the basketball court, there's a lot of contact there. In tennis, there's very minimal contact at all. As you know, the governor of New York did specifically call out tennis as a great sport for the social distancing aspect of everything.
Somebody else said, yeah, mention the size.
Yeah, even if you're using, you know, you have multiple players on a court, or you have a class that you're having to do this. I do a lot of partner activities, and that's really what the focus is for us. And almost all of those activities, you know, partners are 8, 10, 12 feet away from each other, maybe a lot further from there. And then you need room on the sides too. So there's a lot of ways to make sure that you're getting that distance and then explaining it to them. I think the big thing is showing administration whenever possible how it is. So whether it's showing Lynn's video to them or taking a look at the Net Generation app and you know, just kind of showing how things are laid out. There's a lot of resources that can kind of explain that, but you know, compared to the other options that are out there, I think tennis starts to really make a lot of sense when you look at it from a social distance standpoint.
There's been a question about accessing the video library. We can share that. Neil, do you want to talk more about the people wanting to know how they can access the video library to be able to coach tennis?
Yeah, sure. Actually, if you go to netgeneration.com, all the videos reside there. And there are actually a few videos on YouTube also for some of the virtual classes that have been held over the summer. But we'll be glad to send you the links if you text. I'll put my email address in the text as well, in the chat.
In the chat, you'll see the link that Kristen's just shared, and
right.
Kristen will also share Neil and Joe's email addresses. You can contact any of us. As the panelists so far have said, if you want to contact any of them as well, they'll also be able to help.
All right, I think, let's just see what other questions we have that we haven't answered so far.
I think we've answered most of them.
I think I saw a question, Neil, regarding if we're finding that kids are more inclined to play tennis since other sports have been getting canceled, and I definitely do see that, and I think that's a great opportunity to capture the kids into our great sport. You know, we thankfully, because of the USTA, we have so many materials available for them, where they're gonna be where there's always a spot for them. Whether you're a 4-year-old and need a 19-inch racket with foam balls, or whether you come in as a 16-year-old and you might need a 27-inch racket with a yellow ball, or maybe even a green ball. You know, there's no law that says that a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old cannot use a green ball, which will give them a little bit more success. So I definitely do think that there's a great opportunity for us to capture some of these youth into the sport of tennis.
Shelly, you also made a comment. Do you want to share that with everybody off the basis of the same question? You talked about athletes burning out and possibly wanting to play tennis.
Yeah, for us, I wish I got them earlier, but I tend to get a lot of juniors and seniors they're just tired of playing soccer since they were 4 years old in an organized sport organization. Baseball can only keep so many people. I don't cut. I'm part of the no cut tennis program that USTA had done ages ago. We have 8 courts. I'm very lucky. But these kids, they come and they got cut from another team. They're just good athletes. I go, give me an athlete. I could teach you to play tennis.
Yeah.
If you got natural footwork, come play tennis for me, please do. So, I mean, I really go to the other teams and say, oh, I'm so sorry you didn't make the baseball team. Okay, come play tennis. So definitely go and get those other sport kids.
I'm going to be very interested to see who shows up to our preseason team meeting, because there are 2 schools of thought. One is people are too afraid to come out and do anything, so the numbers will be low. I am of the opposite school of thought. I am of the school of thought that the boys season, we usually get anywhere between 65 and 75 boys to show up for 30 positions between JV and varsity. I can't do a no-cut policy with 6 courts and 75 boys trying out, but the girls has been on the decline, which is a cause for concern, which is another reason why we really focus on trying to get a lot of the younger girls to come to the clinics. But I'm interested to see what the actual true numbers will be when the signups happen. The registration for high school tennis for girls will be starting this Saturday, so it won't help this panel, but I can report back when I have some more information. But I am hoping that the realization that tennis is the safest thing going, as far as athletically speaking, that leads us to, bigger numbers and more participation, especially on the girls' part.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Anyway, thank you so much for participating today. We want to spend a couple of minutes for our trivia contest. But I think the takeaway is that, if you're a parent or a coach or a teacher or in any form associated with a school, and you want to bring tennis to your PE class, contact one of us, and we'll be glad to, help you with that, because our goal is to grow the game. We feel it's a lifelong game. It teaches great skills, and, especially in these COVID times, there's not much else nothing better than playing tennis. We all know that. So thank you again, panelists. And if anybody has further questions, we'll be glad to forward them to our panel. So please feel free to email us. So let's get on with the trivia question, which has been sponsored by our partners at AHPERD. So the first question 1.
I'm just coming off of mute here to let people know that they can write their answers in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't
include your first and last name. Oh, good. Well, I'm here.
Yeah, put your answer. The first person to answer correctly and put your name in there will get a prize. And then they'll just once your name is called out as a winner, you're going to email Monica. She'll have your email information, and we'll mail the prize to you, which will be sent from AHPERD again. All right, Kristen, whenever you're ready.
And before, that you just look at the chat quickly, you can see Monica Lamora, that's the person you're emailing, just so you know, so there's no confusion.
All right, how many tennis courts are needed to start a tennis PE program? Let's see. We're giving you very easy questions.
These people are quick.
So who was the first one to answer 0?
Ooh, I think Kathy.
Kathy
Kathy Schack answered before we'd even asked the question.
Kathy was like, I'm on this.
All right, we have a winner. So Kathy is the winner? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that okay.
Yes,
all right,
Kathy's
let's
well
go
done, Kathy.
So let's go on to question 2. I was trying to get this answer out of Jason. What color ball comes with the school tennis kit? I don't know if he actually gave us the color.
Oh, I gave a lot of hints. There you go.
All
Millie
right,
got it. Millie. Oh no, Arthur got it. And Joe got it in. Look at this. Joe got it.
Wait,
nice job,
I
Joe.
think it's...
No, I don't know.
I see Joe.
Our judges will determine who got it, but the correct answer is red. You get red foam balls in the kit.
Oh, that's
right.
why he was putting me on the spot, trying to.
Now it all makes sense.
Now it makes sense, right? And question
Pay
number
attention,
3.
there will be a quiz.
Question number 3. What grades does the USTA school curriculum cover? Yeah, the correct answer is K through 12 or all.
That's
And,
Joe.
Joe,
We're
Joe,
not
you
giving
can't win again. Wait, no,
Joe.
no, Joe
by the
can't
way-
win again.
We're
I'm
gonna-
sorry,
Not the
Joe. I'm
same
making that.
Joe.
I
We're gonna
love
do
you,
Yes,
Joe,
follow-up,
but
Joe.
Different Joe.
I love you, Joe, but you can't win again. That's the rule. I just made that up.
I
Joe's
love
the
the
big name tonight.
enthusiasm. That's great.
Decent.
Joe does a great job in the schools as well. He has a lot of.
I didn't win the last one, he said.
You won one of them, Joe. You won one of them. Joe does a great job in the schools as well, all over the island.
Don't
So-
worry, our judges are gonna go over
I
this
think
very
it's
carefully.
Adrian Altieri who got the K through 12 after Joe. So
I
I think
get
she's our
one.
winner.
I was
All
gonna
right,
say,
this
I
next
don't know what the prizes are either, so you might not want to get too excited.
the next question is actually one that I got out of Jason. How many rackets
Ooh.
school kit? And right,
Ooh.
30.
Sebastian.
You
30,
guys-
30, 30, 30. Sebastian.
So people are paying attention to you.
Yeah,
Jason, that's
Sebastian
great.
Chirula.
There's a first time for everything, Neil. Someone's paid attention.
And the last question, we didn't actually answer this, so you would have to have paid attention to your the materials you received. What award is Domingo Montes receiving
Ah,
Friday?
I think I know.
And
It's dead silence at this moment. Let me see. Anybody?
people are probably looking this up right now.
You can
They're
guess,
looking at the
guys.
program.
You can guess.
Domingo,
Anybody- any
congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, Kathy.
guesses? Most personable.
Most personable.
Oh, clinician
Thank
of the
you.
year.
See, we finally got a
No,
hard
not
question.
clinician of the year.
Contributor.
That was 2 years ago, Joe.
There you go.
Domingo
Lots
gets
of
an award every
guesses.
year, it looks like.
You
So
10,
nobody's
Domingo? You 10?
answered that so far. So we still have that open.
Well, maybe you have to all come on Friday and see if no one's a winner.
Right.
There you go.
Because we're not going to tell you if you don't know.
Yeah. Well, that prize is going to go unclaimed apparently.
Biggest smile.
Oh
Aw,
my God. You've got
Catherine.
serious fans, Domingo.
All right, everyone. Well, we've reached the end of our session. We thank you all for attending, and thank you again, panelists, for making this very interesting and enlightening. And we'll see you at the next session, which is coming up shortly.
And
Thank you so much.
and a big shout out to teachers and PE teachers particularly, especially at this time. We are so grateful to all of you for what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, and as you can see on the slide, we actually have a networking chat area. If you want to go there and and ask more questions or even just meet new people, if you have time, that would be great. It's going to be open right after this meeting. It's actually open right now.
So do we stay on to get in there, Neil, or?
No, you go back to the main
Okay.
the site, and then you'll see a networking
The link
chat
to it.
area.
And
Okay.
7:30 tonight, any of you are interested in serve tennis, Jocelyn is running the serve tennis session this evening, which will be very informative for those of you who want to know more about that. If anybody on this call wants to
Okay.
tune in for another one at 7:30.
7:30. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you all. Take care.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, guys. Best of
Bye.
luck.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you guys for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank
That
you for
was
joining
awesome.
us.
See you.
Very good.
If
Great
there's
job,
anything,
everyone.
if there's anything New York State AHPERD can do for you, let us know. We'll do what we can because you guys have done a lot for us in the past. So thank you, Lynn. Very good to see you. Hopefully
Good to see you.
the conference in November. So
Yes.
see what happens.
Okay.
Fingers
Good to
crossed.
see you. Thanks, guys.
Lovely to
Thank
see
you,
everyone. Be
Bye-bye.
well.
Take
Take care, everyone.
care.
Bye-bye.